Thank you. Cheryl, could I ask you to call for the second and to make any apologies, please?
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. I'll just run through the date if you can indicate your attendance, please. Councillor Graham Barton.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor John McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Ellen Friel.
I'm here, Cheryl. Thank you.
Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Peter Mabin.
Present. Good morning.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Linda Mabin.
Sorry, apologies for Councillor Linda Memon. She's been called to another meeting.
No problem. Councillor William Lennox.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Billy Crawford.
Sends his apologies.
Councillor Neil Watts.
Put his apology. Councillor Watts has put his apologies in.
Apologies as well. No problem. I've got apologies from Councillor Drew Felson. Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
Good morning, I'm here, thank you.
And Councillor James Kyle.
Present.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I'm going to move on to item 1 on the agenda, and that is declarations of interest. I don't see anybody in the room or online, so I think we're okay with that. I'm going to move on to item 2 in the agenda, and that is the hearing procedure. Cheryl, could you take us through that one, please?
Thanks, Chair. Page 3 of your papers outlines the hearing procedure. The Chief Planning Officer or representative will give details of the application. Thereafter, the objectors and other agents will present their objections to committee in support of their written objections. Each objector will be given 5 minutes. Following that, members of the committee may ask questions of the objections on the submissions made, and to note that this is not to be taken as an opportunity to comment on the merits or otherwise of the planning application. Following this, the applicant or their agents will speak for a maximum total of 15 minutes. Thereafter, the members of the committee may ask questions of the applicant as their submissions made. This is not to be taken as an opportunity to comment on the merits otherwise of the planning application at this stage as well. Following that, the hearing will close. All parties will be asked to withdraw to the public gallery and the committee will consider the application. At this stage, the Chief Planning Officer or representative will address the committee and give appropriate clarification on any issues raised during the hearing, and then the committee will then go on to make a decision.
Thank you, Cheryl. Members are going to move on to item 3 in the agenda, and that is planning application number 23/0168/PPP, and that is residential development with associated access, landscaping, SUDs and other ancillary development at land to the east of Glasgow Road, Kilmarnock by Hargreaves Land Limited. The members, we do have a hearing for this application this morning, and I propose 5 minutes for each objector and 15 minutes for the agent, if everybody's happy with that. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the first part of the hearing, and we'll ask the planning department, and that will be Fiona Finlay to take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Today, members are considering this application for planning permission in principle for a residential development on land in Glasgow Road to the very north of Kilmarnock. The site is designated for residential development within the East Ayrshire Local Development Plan 2 with an indicative capacity of 79 units. This proposal, being planning permission in principle, does not have a specified number of units, but the transport assessment provided with the application is based on a layout of 74 units. An indicative development plan framework has been provided, showing an access to the site midway along Glasgow Road that will split within the site and provide access to the north and southern sections. Strategic landscaping is shown on the plan encompassing the site, along with pockets of amenity and recreational open space, and to the rear of existing properties there will be tree planting shown. There's a play area highlighted centrally within the plan, within the site, and a sustainable urban drainage system is also shown. Obviously, these details are indicative at the present time. Full details of the site location and the proposals are outlined in your report, starting at paragraph 3 on page 5, continuing till paragraph 7, and the maps are shown on page 7 and 8. If we can all just turn to the slides, I will see if I can share these with you and just run through some photographs, etc. So just give me a second, members. Okay, so here we have the application site marked in a sort of deep red colour. This pocket in here, members, is land out with the application site. You can see that it is on the Glasgow Road, and the Glasgow Road comes up to meet the A77, joining the M77. Here we have South Craigs over to this part of the screen, and we have the former Barrett residential development to the north, and Derwallen Business Park in here, members, as well. This is a plan submitted by the applicant. You can see that the site is shown around here, members, and we obviously have this area of land out with, and that's Glasgow Road, and that's the Fenwick Water to the rear of the site. This is the indicative plan, members, that's within your site. It is purely indicative at the present time, because obviously what we're here today to do is consider the principle of residential development on this site. So that plan is also in your papers. Just a quick illustration, members, of the site allocation and designation, as we always put up for you within the Local Development Plan 2. You can see the dark, the really thick black boundary there, members. That is the settlement boundary, and you can see the sort of colour here, showing the sort of light orangey colour, showing the designation of the site. Just some photographs up and down Glasgow Road. Over the site towards the Barrett houses. You can start to see how the land starts to slope down, members. There are quite significant level challenges with this site. You can see the land sloping down there. I'm just flicking through the photographs, members. I'd like you have a wee look at them. You can see the land sloping down there, members. Across Glasgow Road. Okay, I'm going to close that down and stop sharing my screen. Okay, so turning back to the report, we've not received any objections from consultees, as detailed starting at paragraph 19 in your report. In terms of representations, the points made can be summarised, are summarised in your report, and you'll generally see details of overshadowing, privacy, loss of light, drainage, public service implications, transport implications, overdevelopment, land development, land stability, lack of demand, nature and species impacts, and all points are responded to within the evaluation of the report. The development plan for East Ayrshire now comprises LDP2 and NPF4 with associated supplementary guidance. The report before you at paragraph 38 refers to the planning considerations for both applications. Today, members, I'm going to concentrate on the primary considerations within that list and summarise the points for you. Points that are the primary considerations are the principle of residential development, development viability with affordable housing and developer contributions, and impacts on traffic. All other matters are detailed issues and have been discussed within the report, such as residential amenity, biodiversity and nature, impacts on trees, drainage and flood risk, climate change, site levels and conditions. In terms of the primary issues, and firstly principle, the application site is allocated for residential development in LDP2. The policies of LDP2 and NPF4 are supportive and encourage the development of housing opportunity sites that are identified in the development plan. The development of the site would also meet with the core principles of the East Ayrshire Spatial Strategy as set out within LDP2, namely that the proposal will help encourage new housing across communities to stabilise population and achieve population growth, focusing on sustainable locations underpinned by market demand to ensure sites are realistic and viable. In terms of the development viability, affordable housing and developer contributions, this is supported. The principal development is supported, as I've said, within the Ayrshire Local Development Plan, but the site allocation does not consider potential site constraints to development. The Local Development Plan 2 also requires a developer contribution towards affordable housing and education provision as addressed under the policies and the SG, as recently adopted. Firstly, in terms of affordable housing, this policy, Res 2, states that affordable housing will be required on all sites of 30 or more houses within the Kilmarnock and Loudon sub-market housing area. Within such developments, at least 25% of houses will require to be affordable in nature. These amounts are a target, and each development will be negotiated on a site-by-site basis, with the council taking a flexible approach to the implementation of the policy. As noted in the report, following a detailed development viability assessment process and discussions between the applicant and the planning service, it is considered by the planning service that a 12.5% provision of affordable homes would be acceptable, noting the caveat within the supplementary guidance. Turning to developer contributions, members, this states that under policy INF4 that where a development will have additional impacts on infrastructure, services, facilities and amenities that would necessitate new facilities or exacerbate deficiencies in existing provision, the council will require the developer to meet or contribute towards the cost of providing or improving such facilities and infrastructure. I can give you an update on the report members before you, in terms of the position stated in the report, and I now confirm that following further discussions with the applicant and the planning service, the applicant has now reconsidered this position and is offering a full contribution to the amount of £105,517 with the report payments to be secured via a Section 75 agreement and phased with 1/3 of the sum falling due upon the completion of every 27th unit. This payment would therefore be in full compliance with INF 4 and is an update to the position that's expressed in your report. In terms of transport, Policy T1 of the LDP2 and Policy 13 of MPF 4 require development impacts on the transportation network and infrastructure to be fully considered. The applicant has provided a transport assessment highlighting that the site is in a relatively accessible location for both vehicle and pedestrian transport modes on a key arterial route into Kilmarnock from the north. It's in relatively close proximity to key facilities and services. Ayrshire Roads Alliance have offered no objections to the application, subject to conditions in relation to the provision of detailed designs for access arrangements, drainage details, parking, turning areas, including garage dimensions, a construction traffic management plan, footway improvements, bus stop improvements, and carriageway signage. Should the application be approved, these matters can be addressed by condition and through any further detailed application. ARA are also in attendance today if you have any further queries. In conclusion, this site is designated as a residential opportunity site, with the principle of the development for such purposes supported and encouraged by LDP2 and MPF 4, which together are the development plan. The applicant's indicative framework, whilst lacking in some detail, broadly aligns with the principles of the site designation. Detailed design elements for the development, together with a detailed development framework taking a master planning approach, would require to be submitted before the approval of matter 5 specified in condition application process, with planning conditions attached to this planning permission in principle if members choose to grant consent to ensure that all detailed matters are addressed appropriately. The applicant has provided evidence to show that the inclusion of 25% of the total units being affordable, and it has been agreed that a reduced contribution. It's been agreed with the planning service that we can recommend to members that a reduced 12.5% contribution would be appropriate. The members as members have been advised, there is an updated position regarding the full payment of developer contribution. It is therefore recommended that the application be granted subject to the conditions in your report, and also subject to a 75 legal agreement to secure the negotiated reduced affordable housing contribution and the staged payment of developer contribution. I'll pass back to yourself, Chair.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Members, we're going to move on to part 2 of the hearing procedure. We're going to hear from the objector and the applicant, who are going to put their case to support the positions. So I'm going to ask Miss Sandra Brothwick to come forward, just up to the end of the chair here. Thanks, Miss Brock. Just relaxing. Once you're ready, we'll start a 5-minute timer. I'll give you a wee gentle reminder at 4 minutes just to. No, you just state your position, your case.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Borthwick and I own Doggy Day Camp on the Glasgow Road, which is right next to my house, is where the houses will be going. So the kennels, my bit of land, the small holdings, has been in my family for about 45 years. Before that, it used to be a piggery as well. So it's been an old building, so it is, but it has been in the family for a long time and I want to keep it going. So basically, at my doggy daycare, it's Monday to Thursday. I do work the odd Saturday, but it is in business hours. However, the dogs that I look after are lockdown puppies, so they are, and they do bark. If they're not getting attention, they bark a lot, so they do. We have had a few complaints about the barking, and I just think, would anyone really want to buy a big house next to doggy daycare? I'm not sure. So I was just wondering, when do you think the houses would be getting built? I would really like a kind of rough thing, sorry.
That's coming in as a question.
Right.
See if you just put your point of
Right,
view
okay,
across
yeah.
with no questions.
Right,
Thanks.
okay, perfect. I don't know. Sorry. So also we've got septic tanks as well. We've got our main septic tank which goes into the fields, what is our toilet waste from our house. But however, we do also have, I've got a septic tank in with the daycare. So it's not just human feces we've got going into the field where that bit of land is. We've also got like animal waste as well, which is going into the land, and it does our like kind of area where our septic tank, it does overflow, and the kind of area which the houses are going in, it is mock it. See when it's raining, see because it's so downhill, it is like really, really flooded and everything like that sometimes. So it is. I don't really know what else.
Thanks. No, see if you could just stay in position, Sandra. Thanks very much. It's now we're in a position where members can ask you questions. So, members, do you have any questions for? Yep, Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a wee quick question because we're interested about if you had any complaints about the noisy dogs. You mentioned there that you have. Can you tell me roughly where, if you know where the complaints have came from? Is it across on the west side of the road from the houses there, or is it the ones that are maybe north of your property?
I'm not actually sure. They never really told us. I've only ever had one complaint, but I'm licensed for 8 dogs a day, so I am. But that's like, I've got my own dogs as well. So normally we've got our own 2, but I look after my sister's dog as well. So it is roughly 10 or 11 dogs I've got at one time. So it does get noisy sometimes. It's fine. Like, if I'm there, I'm fine, but it's like I'm there all the time, but it does, like, because they're lockdown puppies, they just bark a lot, so they do.
Members, any further questions? There's nobody in the room and nobody else online. Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Broswick.
Thanks.
If you can just return
Yeah.
to your seat. There's no other objectors wanting to speak, so I'm now going to ask Martin Hannah and Ross MacDonald, the applicants, to come up. Mr. Hannah, Mr. MacDonald, it's 15 minutes for yourself. It's just whenever you're ready, and then again, if you get within that 1 minute, I'll give you a gentle reminder. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and Councillors. My name is Martin Hannah, speaking for the applicant Hargreaves Land, and this is Ross MacDonald sitting to my right. We welcome and support the Office's recommendation to grant planning permission. Hargreaves Land submitted this planning application in the spring of 2023. And we started work on the project as early as 2021. So the submissions before you are the product of a lot of hard work by land management and design professionals. It's taken a very long time to get to this point. The report and handling presented to you this morning is lengthy, but we're broadly happy with the recommendations before you. Some of the conditions outlined do seem a little repetitive and unnecessary to us, but we can certainly work with them. I'll respond to the third-party objections in a moment, but there were a couple of omissions in the report which I would ask the committee to consider. Hargreaves Land is a strategic land business, and we set about repurposing old coalfield land across the UK. And this has involved new planning strategies, land restoration and land management. Sometimes returning it to the farmland and forestry is the best option. And we've also led on schemes to add value through grant of planning permissions and planning promotion and multi-sector development. We don't build housing as a business, but nevertheless, a significant part of our business involves land preparation of sites that's taken up for housing development by others, principally home builders and housing associations. Across Scotland, we undertake land assembly, promotion, permitting, enabling infrastructure and remediation works to make land effective and ready for development. So we utilise our land management skills to work collaboratively with landowners and councils to create a pipeline of work for the future. Our strategic land and development pipeline encompasses short, medium and long-term opportunities, and we try to unlock these opportunities at the right time to deliver high-quality built outcomes. The application site in Kilmarnock, Hillcrest, is an example of this. Several years before the council allocated the land for development in its LDP, we identified the opportunity, which was then in multiple ownerships. So we approached the landowners and took the land parcels under option agreement to assemble the opportunity. And that was to try and create a coherent and legible development scheme. So what we did is we invested in surveys, site investigations, we commissioned various reports to inform the concept design, also scope out services, road capacity, and set the scene for the submission of a planning application. So we've incurred planning application fees, legal fees, consultant fees, design, hundreds of thousands of pounds to get to this point. The point I want to make to you this morning is that Hargreaves made this investment decision in 2021, and we finally contracted the various land parcels in 2022, prior to the preparation of LDP2. We notified the council of our intention to submit a planning application in the summer of 2022 and engaged in public consultation later that year. We submitted the application in March 2023, nearly 2 years ago. Our investment decisions were all taken against the background of the 2017 East Ayrshire Local Development Plan. As you've learned today, the council has changed its policies with regard to provision of affordable housing and developer contributions under its new plan, and that's adopted a year after our planning submission in April 2024. So whilst the planning officials have carefully set out their assessment against planning policy and LDP2 and set out the position with regard to contributions and affordable housing, they've also set out the need for pragmatism and flexibility. The report hasn't really explained some of this important background or reasoning. So some of the survey and design work has highlighted some extraordinary or abnormal costs. And while we often come across such issues and face unexpected costs, but we start the process of promotion and concept design. The cumulative effect of site abnormals, the additional regulatory burdens that we now face, and policies in a state of flux create cost inflations, which have certainly taken a toll on the economics of this development. So these delays have imposed some costs on us that have real-world consequences. We've engaged positively with your housing and planning officials to reach a compromise on the planning gain, including a substantial contribution to the primary school. There was no requirement to provide affordable housing when we contracted the land or submitted our planning application. And council officials have advised us that presently there's no public funding available to involve a registered social landlord or deliver social rent on the site. So what we've tried to do is reach a fair and workable compromise to provide discounted homes for sale. There are no objections to our application from key stakeholders. The application has attracted some objection from neighbours. You've heard from one objector this morning. Some of the objections seem to originate from the residents of new homes in the estate to the north. They do speak as though this application site is not allocated for housing. It's somehow greenbelt or functional open space or important to wildlife. They've offered some technical commentary that it's just plain wrong. So we hope that you will set those objections aside this morning. Now, Mrs. Borthwick operates a dog daycare from her home and has expressed some concerns to you this morning. She does have a responsibility to operate her business responsibly, and in a neighbourly way. I would like you to know that the business has offered to a fair price for Mrs. Borthwick's property. We've actually offered to acquire it to allow her to relocate if she would wish. That approach was rejected. The application, the detailed application, this is a planning application for permission in principle, but the detailed application will make provision for setbacks and mitigation to protect any proposed homes from noise. So we hope that that will allay any concerns that you might have about that. An objector, Mr. McLaughlin and Mrs. Borthwick again this morning both mentioned a septic tank outfall, a sewer outfall. Now these outfalls will be connected into the public drainage system as part of the wider development. That's a much improved outcome that will be designed and signed off by your planning officials and your building control officials. So I hope that will allay any concerns in that regard. So finally, Chairman and Councillors, the application site is allocated by this council for housing development. It's identified by your housing land audit as an effective housing opportunity. And grant of planning permission today will accord with adopted development plan policy, deliver much needed housing consistent with the council's strategic objectives. So I commend this planning application to you and would welcome your support this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to open up to members to see if we've got any questions for yourself. Is that your submission complete? Yeah.
It is, Chairman.
Yeah. Don't see any. Oh, Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask the area that's been identified as a high-risk coal mining section? I think it was in the southwest area. Have you got any idea how many properties would be built on that specific part of the site?
Councillor, the area that's been identified by the Coal Authority as a potentially high-risk area is in the extreme southwest corner of the site. It is highly peripheral. Most of the development does not affect it in the slightest. The point I would like to make to you this morning is that notwithstanding the planning condition that's been inserted into the proposed conditions in your papers, is that we have engaged a geotechnical consultant, Mason Evans, to thoroughly investigate the site. So the company has undertaken not just trial pitting across the site, but borehole investigation of the site to really de-risk it from a minerals perspective. So though it's described as high risk, we've demonstrated the site is not affected by any work coal mining. So there is no vulnerability. The site has been de-risked, and we've demonstrated that through a stage 2 geotechnical assessment. To answer your question directly about the number of houses involved, it would probably be around 1 or 2. But as I say, we've demonstrated, and we can demonstrate to building control, that there's zero risk there.
Councillor McGee.
Are you saying your submission, Ken, you've been preparing this site for 2021, was it? You said?
Yes, Councillor, I first approached one of the landowners, Mr. Watt, who lives in the house to the north. He owns some acreage in the house. I personally approached Mr. Watt in 2021 on behalf of Hargreaves. And then the remaining land at Borland was contracted after that. So we've been working on it a very long time.
So, if I can share, so during that preparation, obviously in the business you're involved in, you must have been aware that there's going to be NPF4, there's going to be changes to council policy, planning policy, as they move on. Again, if councillors are elected in a role, sometimes they've got concerns, i.e. regards developer contributions. So sometimes these policies change. And I think when you see the bit of land, you must have taken it you must have been aware that it would be a difficult site. So my concern is that here we've ended up, we've only got 12.5% of the allocation of the affordable housing instead of what we actually should have had. So I want to understand about the viability and why the affordable housing had to be cut.
This council has quite a few questions wrapped up into all of that, but you're spot on. I mean, we are professional developers and land managers, so perfectly aware that we live in a dynamic world where legislation changes, where development plan policies change. I think it would be fair to say that in 2021, when we set out on this journey, we did not anticipate the changes that took place in the LDP2, for example. Nor some of the changes that emerged in the MPF4, which was also adopted by the Scottish Government after we contracted the land. But you're correct that we take a pragmatic view about these things, and we work collaboratively with planning authorities across Scotland to thrash out things like affordable housing and developer contributions. I mean, one of the reasons that this application has been in the system for as long is because we've been engaged with your housing officials and your planning officials to present the development viability, the number crunching, so to speak, to set out all the factors germane to this planning application, the constraints that we've identified. The planners have helpfully pointed out the levels this morning, the significant muck shift involved, the retention involved to develop a site like this. There are no easy sites left, Councillor. You are correct. All sites have their challenges. This site has perhaps a few more challenges than most, certainly more than we were expecting. And we have set all that out quite carefully to your officials, and your officials have accepted that. It's been done on an open book basis. So both your housing officials and planning officials have, I suppose, looked under the bonnet and accept the numbers that we've presented to them.
Can we happy that response, John?
Aye, I've no any more questions. It's just a comment I've got, no regarding getting the answer, but so I'll leave that to someone.
Yeah, because at this stage we're not to comment on the merits of the application. So I've got Councillor Maitland wanting to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Very similar to Councillor McGee's question, so I'll just stick to the one question here. As strategic planners, you'd be aware that the 2017 that you were basing your ideas on was going to change in 2024, and I think Councillor McGee covered that. Where you said you were in negotiations with the council, but did you act as well as a consultee on the local development plan? Thank you.
The business would have been engaged in LDP2. Whether we offered specific comment in relation to affordable housing policy and developer contributions, I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember that. We are, as a business, members of Homes for Scotland. We tend to rely heavily upon Homes for Scotland's representations to planning authorities across Scotland in relation to development plan review. Homes for Scotland almost certainly would have offered commentary on developer contributions and affordable housing policy through any emerging plan.
Thank you. Members, any? Councillor Kyle?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. You're talking about you've got the levels of ground gas and you're going to put up a barrier system. What's your barrier system?
Councillor, when we undertake site investigations, we've explained that geotechnical engineers have fully investigated the site. There's been a question this morning about mineral risk. Where the site investigation reveals elevated ground gas levels, the precautionary approach that we take is to introduce a membrane which is installed underneath the slab. Every one of these homes would be a timber kit on a concrete slab. So what we do is we seal that slab to make sure there's no risk of any gas. When I say elevated, it's not a dangerous level of gas, it's a precautionary issue. A membrane is inserted underneath the slab. It's a thick visqueen type membrane. and any openings in the slab are carefully sealed to involve any transmission of gas underlying from the ground into occupied buildings. It's a fairly standard engineering approach, and quite a large number of buildings being constructed in the Kilmarnock area would incorporate ground gas mitigation measures, a fairly standard approach. It's not cheap. It can add several £1,000s of cost to each house, but it's really done not so much at the insistence of your planning authority, but it's a building standard requirement.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions? I don't see anybody online. I don't see anybody in the room. Okay, members, at this point, I'm going to close the hearing procedure. If I could ask the applicants just to return to the public gallery, please. Members, and now we're going to hand back over to Fiona, who's going to make any responses to those brought up in the hearing procedure.
Thank you very much, Chair. A couple of points just to comment on. Mrs. Borthwick raised the matters regarding noise from her property. We do have a condition down under the development framework for a noise impact assessment. That's on page 22. Is condition 2N. So it's a noise assessment, and it refers to the existing kennel property as well. So we would be having that in as part of the further details in the application. Mrs. Borthwick also referred to the building of the houses and when that would happen. That's really down to market demand, just to give you a bit of clarity. But the developer does have 5 years in which to commence building, should they get planning consent. So it's just to clarify that for you, because I don't think the applicant covered that one for you. Other than that, I don't have much to raise at the moment, but happy to come back in as required.
Thanks, Fiona. The members, I'm going to open it back up to yourselves for questions, comment. Councillor McGee.
I've got to say, Chair, Ken, I'm quite concerned with this application. I'm no, obviously, we've approved the house in here, and I've not got an issue with the housing going here. And I've not got an issue with the planning officers that have dealt with this all the way through. But I've got a concern that when it comes to us as councillors, Ken, we're really handed that, well, here's what you've got, Ken, it's 12.5%, it's no the 25% of the affordable housing that we want it, and that's our policy. And I'm really disappointed in that. Now, if the applicant is a problem with viability, then they must have known that for the outset, Ken, it is a difficult piece of grun. But as councillors, if we don't vote to accept this anyway today, then we're not going to win any appeal, or so we've been reliably informed. So to me, it's just a fait accompli. We've just got to suck it up and accept what it is. But we didn't get to 12.5 just off the bat. I'm led to believe, Ken, it was 5% at the beginning. And now we've got 12.5%. We have to jump up and down cheering. Well, I'm not cheering, because we should have had 25%. If we've got a policy and we're not going to abide by it, and I ken there's flexibility in the policy itself, I understand that. But if this has been such a long time in the making, I've got concerns that we get to decide the day. And as somebody said, I would like to have seen the working of how we got to here. So, I mean, I'll be voting for approval, but it doesn't mean to say that I'm voting for approval and I haven't got grave concerns regarding our policy. Because if we've got a policy regarding affordable housing and education, developers' contributions, let's try and stick to it. Let's not water them down. So that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McGee. No, Pam, are you going to come in and talk us about the affordable?
Yeah, probably more on the sort of strategic stuff. Let Fiona do sort of more the detailed matters, and I agree totally with what Councillor McGee is saying. We have a policy which says 25%. However, the applicant has presented a case in terms of the viability of the site, and I suppose that the physical constraints of that site are quite challenging. I know that you've said that they knew what they were taking on, but also I think the policy framework has moved on in terms of MPF4 and in terms of the council's LDP too, although in saying that they will be aware of the direction that the council was going in terms of LDP2 through the various stages, main issues report, proposed plan on that. I think we hear what you say in terms of developer contributions. This is one that has been caught in terms of the change in that policy framework. And I think as new applications come in, we're quite clear about the 25% affordable housing. The good news is that they've agreed to do the education contribution on that. So again, we're clear on the direction of sort of members in terms of these sort of developer contributions. Yes, it's disappointing that we're sitting with only 12.5% and not the 25%, but it has been some improvement in terms of that sort of 5%. The applicants here, so they can hear what members are saying and the position of the council in terms of the developer contributions. If you know anything you want to add.
I don't think there is really anything to add, Councillor McGee and Pamela. I think they did come back, the applicant did come back with a lower figure, and we did go back and forth, and we have ended up at 12.5. But I do agree with what Pamela has said to you as well.
Thanks, Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Pamela, for that answer. I mean, there's obviously very many factors involved in a project of this size, and developer contributions and social housing should just be taken as one of those factors right from the very start. I don't think we went through LDP and a separate members' officers working group and local and developer contributions to just come up with a starting point for negotiations. We came up with these figures. So again, I just want to echo Councillor McGee, extremely disappointed that it always seems to be the developers' contributions or the social housing that is the cost that has to be negotiated down. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maitland. Yep, I mean, I welcome the education contribution, the 105,000. I mean, that's certainly an improved position for it was just a short while ago. But I'm just going to bring in Councillor Mabins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at paragraph 43 about the impact on transport. Relatively accessible locations for both vehicular and pedestrian transport modes. There's no pavement existing there on that side of the road just now, but I don't know if this has also been discussed as a safe walking route for school, so I don't know if there's a pavement going to be installed there. And there's no crossing point for any new houses going in there. How would they cross the road to get to the pavement on the other side? Or are we going to have a new pavement? Is that part of what's being planned?
Yeah, as you say. Yeah, I was going to bring in Barry for Adam. Okay, Fiona.
Thank you very much. On page 23, Councillor, condition number 6, there is to be a 2-metre footpath along the frontage of the site with Glasgow Road. That's specified in the conditions, and maybe just bring in Barry for anything else, if that's okay.
Hey, Barry.
Chair, I can confirm that we've actually got proposals to create a footpath the full length of the frontage of the site, linking the going for the roundabout at South Craigs down towards linking up to the existing footpath just south of just to the north of Glasgow Road. So we've got plans to install a footway in any case. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Keep that response there.
Yeah, just as the council's doing that already, or is the developer now helping with the cost of doing that, or is that nothing to do with the developer?
again, it's proposals that we're bringing forward this, you know, within this current financial year. I'm not sure how long it will take for the developer to get on site, but we just felt it was prudent to bring these proposals forward at this time, Councillor Mabin.
Through you, Chair, I'm just asking clarification there because my understanding is with that proposed condition that Fiona just mentioned that we would expect the developer actually to do that 2 metre wide footpath. But obviously Fiona can perhaps come in and clarify that for you members.
There is a condition, yes, members, to ask for the developer to do it. I'm not sure if ARA have got their own proposals under their own work plans, but certainly if the site goes ahead, then there is a condition there about the footpath being formed.
Yeah, I think we're crossing over into what's been agreed at other council meetings here. I think that just for clarification that the footpath has been installed by ARA in this financial year.
I think, Chair, what we are proposing is, and obviously ARA may wish to reflect on this, is given the infrastructure issues being proposed as a consequence of this development, albeit it's planning permission in principle at this stage that's being proposed, that given the impact of this development, I think the planning service are suggesting the 2 metre wide footpath would come forward by the developer. And I know certainly from the applicant's presentation earlier, while they had some queries or issues around the conditions, they were saying they were happy and they could work with those conditions. So it would actually appear, I think, from what has been said, I think the applicant accepts that one of those conditions is that they would be required to provide the 2 metre wide footpath. Therefore, that is maybe something that ARA may wish to reflect on going forward.
Yeah. No.
That's reasonable, and it's something that we can have discussions offline regarding it. ARA may want to put in the footpath sooner rather than later on that. I may not want to wait for the developer because I believe that the current developer will be marketing this site if they get planning permission to sort of house builders, and that will take some time, and we'll need detailed applications to be submitted. So it's probably a discussion to be taken sort of offline.
Thanks, Palmer. I think we'll do that. Now, Councillor Lennox, you want to come in?
Aye, thanks, Chair. It was really just getting back. It's no specifically related to this application, but getting back to Councillor McGee's point about the fact that for this application there have been changes which have meant that we're only getting 12.5% instead of 25%. I'd just like a wee bit of clarification, maybe for Pamela, in terms of are there many other applications that would fall into this category that have been ongoing for a wee while and we've seen those types of changes? Can we anticipate any more applications of this sort coming before us in the future, Pamela? Thank you.
I think we're largely coming to the end of these legacy applications. There's a report of on the end of the agenda about legacy applications, so we are working through those applications. I'm not aware, unless both Fiona and Vary sort of advised me that there are further ones. So this is hopefully probably one of the last ones. So anyone making an application is aware of the council's policy in terms of both affordable housing and education contributions, and it's good now that we have the approved developer contribution guidance as well, to just give that additional detail, which has been approved by Scottish ministers as well. So if there's any doubt in that, then you have that sort of that it has went through the correct approval sort of route on that. So hopefully this is probably one of the last ones coming through.
Thanks, Pamela. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to go on record that I share the disappointment that was expressed earlier by Councillor McGee and Councillor Maitland that we've had to have a negotiation on our policy around affordable housing and developer contributions with education. But I do accept there's been movement on that. My real concern, and it's quite a big concern, is on the existing dog kennels there and the impact that will have excuse me, on residential amenity. Except that the officer has mentioned there'll be a noise impact assessment as part of one of the conditions, but I am really worried about what mitigation factors could be put in there. So yeah, I've got a big red flag about residential amenity for this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. We do have, obviously, the noise impact assessment recommendation came through environmental health, has been built into the consent. So any further application comes forward would need to be accompanied by a noise impact assessment. And that application, as part of the noise impact assessment's findings, would need to be built into the design and layout of the site. The applicant in his presentation to you did refer to mitigation, building out the design, layout, offset distances, etc. And that's tools that the applicant would have to present to us, along with his noise impact assessment and his design and layout, to show the planning service that he was comfortable, so demonstrate the planning service, so we could then decide and evaluate whether we would be comfortable with that, in line with experts from environmental health who would give us that advice as well. Does that help?
So I'm not sure if it does help, but I'll just make a personal comment. So the applicant also said that the business that's been there for 45 years has a responsibility to be a good neighbour. And that's okay for human behaviour, but we're talking about dogs here. And we also heard this morning that there has already been existing complaints about noise from existing properties to the north of the development site. So it's a real live problem, and we could exacerbate that by putting more properties in that area. So that's my position at the moment. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, if it does help. Obviously, I'm conscious. I know the objector stated that she was aware of at least one objection. The situation that we have, Councillor Cowan, if it does give you reassurances, we know that the kennels are there, the doggy kind of daycare facility is there. That's a fact. Therefore, it's now, if members are minded to approve the application, it is absolutely incumbent on the applicant or whoever may build out the houses, they require to find the solution, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are coming in now. As a consequence of that, that's why the conditions have been put in place, because the applicant, through the noise impact assessment, will require to identify appropriate mitigation measures, because they are now coming in to a place where there is an existing doggy daycare or kennel business there with barking dogs. So it will, there is a responsibility on the applicant now, given they're coming in second, and looking to build round about that existing business. And that's why that condition is there, because they will have to find appropriate and suitable mitigation through that noise impact assessment. And that's why the planning service have put that condition in as we move forward, in the event members are minded to approve the application, if that does help.
Right, happy with that, Councillor Cowan? Was any further comment, questions at this point, or are we ready to move to a determination? For me, it's like, I mean, this is allocated land in a local development plan. I think we've commented quite strongly on the developer contributions. There has been some movement with the education contribution. I think Councillor Cowan's points about the noise, we've obviously got the condition in there to cover that. For me, I'd be moving approval, subject to the conditions listed. If anybody else is otherwise minded, I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor McGee.
Aye, Chair, I think everybody's raised their issues that they've had, and I'd be mindful to second you, despite my concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Cowan.
Chair, I'd like to move for refusal based on residential amenity policy Res 3.
Chair, just on that, I am conscious that this is an allocated site in the LDP2, so it has already gone through a formal statutory process and has clearly been identified for a housing site, and therefore, you know, I'm just flagging up to the councillor that quite clearly, given it's already been assessed and it's a site in the LDB2, the principle of housing has already been established, you know, at that location. So just whether or not, you know, bearing in mind that advice, you know, you may wish to reflect on that.
So you're going to keep that proposal forward. So Councillor Cowan would need a seconder at this point. I don't see him in the room or online, so would that just be noted at this point? Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl. Could you just...
Can I just check, do you want your dissent recorded on the minute? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So just to confirm that this application has been approved.
Just to clarify, that would be subject to the conditions on the detailed sheet and also to the legal agreement that is proposed. Members, just to make sure that that's clarity and part of your decision.
Yep. Thank you. Members, thank you very much. So we're moving on to item 4 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 24/0122/PP, and that is the new petrol filling station, jet wash and shop at land at Kilmarnock Road, Mauchline by TPS Recoveries Limited. I think, Barry, you're going to take us to this one?
Thanks, Chair. I'll just share my screen with you just to go through some plans and photographs of the site just before turning to the considerations and the recommendation, if you bear with me. So the application site is located at the northern side of Mauchline. You can see this is the A76 trunk road, which runs alongside it. Site is outlined in red here. You've got Hillhead Heights, kind of fairly recent residential development on the opposite side of the road, and the Burns Memorial housing here. And this is Turbolton Road that runs along to the west of the site. This house here is also Craig Now House, which is located to the north of the application site. So the application site is brownfield. This is an existing site plan. It was formerly occupied by a petrol filling station up until around, I believe, 2003, when it was demolished, and since then it hasn't been in any use. This is a bit of a kind of larger scale version of the site plan. It shows the kind of original layout of the petrol filling station, which some people will remember. So the petrol filling station shop was here, and this was a hard standing, and the 2 access points, and these are still in existence. So this is a site plan. This is a proposed site plan. So it utilises the same 2 accesses. So one being an entrance. This is the one to the south. So this is kind of tilted around from the plan you were previously looking at. So Kilmarnock Road is to the bottom of the slide there. So the access point is to the south, and the exit to the north. They have provided the HGV tracking just to ensure that vehicles can get in and out safely. Within the application site proposed is the shop, which is within this area here, along with parking around these areas, 4 petrol or diesel filling points to the west side of the site, and electric vehicle charging points. There are 3 of those proposed, and there is also a jet wash proposed, which is in this area. Hopefully you can see my cursor okay, and cycle parking as well. So There is also some landscaping proposed to this part of the site. This is just indicative, and there is a condition that covers landscaping further. These are some elevations which are a wee bit difficult to kind of get your head around, but this is looking basically from the south. So, sorry, yes, south, looking towards the frontage of the shop, and the canopy is here to the front of it. And this is looking from the west, so to the side of the shop and the canopy. And then the shop itself, just some elevations of it. So it's kind of clad fairly typically kind of grey, mid-grey sort of cladding to the walls, and a sort of profile roof. And again, some elevations. Some photos of the application site. So the application site is on the right-hand side. It's used currently, it's a fairly informal parking area, but you can certainly see that it is clearly a brownfield site. And the Hillhead Heights development on the other side of the road. So roughly where the picture is taken from, there is a proposed pedestrian crossing. It's a signalised crossing across A76. And looking back towards the north, the two accesses there and application site in at left-hand side. And looking from Hillhead Heights side of the road, again an application site, you can see there is some conifer trees here. These are out with the application site, so we would expect them not to be affected by it. So that does provide some kind of landscape setting to it. And again, to the south as well, there is fairly significant landscaping that's already in existence. The only part of the site which is kind of lacking landscaping is to the western side of the site, but we are hoping that we might be able to get something in that area, potentially through the conditions. And again, just within the site, this is looking to the access to Craignow House, which is currently within the application site, but the proposal is that they would get a separate access off the A76 just to the north of it. And within the application site, again, looking to the west and looking to the south and looking towards Hillhead Heights opposite. And this is taken from Turbolton Road. So this is looking from the west to the site, but it's fairly exposed at this point. So just turning now to the recommendation, you will see that the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. The principle of the proposal is supported by the relevant development plan policies as set out within paragraphs 26 to 31 of the report. As well as providing facilities for vehicle charging and refuelling, the shop will provide for a local facility to serve the northern part of Mauchline, and it's supported in that respect. The main issues are considered in the report, and these have mainly been amenity issues, and these are the subject of some objections as well. So amenity impacts and also transport. In terms of amenity and particular noise, it's noted that the site is adjacent to the 76 Trunk Road, which means there is an existing level of background noise. The mitigation measures proposed focus primarily on restrictions during night time. Paragraph 39 sets out these measures, which can be secured by conditions, and these are recommended within the report as well. So the first measure listed seeks to prevent the operation of the jet wash during nighttime hours. The second seeks to ensure that condensers and mechanical fans are designed such that they do not exceed specific noise levels within houses opposite. And the third restricts fuel and shop deliveries to daytime hours only. And the fourth is our usual condition, which restricts the hours of construction to daytime hours. With conditions to secure these measures, the proposal is considered to be acceptable in terms of amenity impact. In terms of transport, as noted, the site is accessed from the A76 Trunk Road. Transport Scotland are therefore the main consultee with this application. A one-way system is proposed, as already shown in the plans, which is acceptable to Transport Scotland following submission of vehicle tracking and some other information as well. It's expected that aside from the passing traffic, there will also be a demand locally to access the shop in particular. The site is located such that it is accessible by walking and cycling, and in order to facilitate this, a signalised crossing is proposed to aid pedestrian access from the opposite side of the A76. Cycle parking is also proposed. Transport Scotland are content with these proposals, subject to the implementation of the signalised crossing. The siting and design is considered to be acceptable given its brownfield location and the existing landscape setting. A condition is recommended to require further details of enhanced landscaping, as previously noted, particularly to the south and the west of the site. So just to run over some of the conditions that are proposed, we've got conditions covering enhanced biodiversity at the site. We also have condition 3, which requires details of measures to make sure that nobody uses the southern access as an exit, because there are issues with visibility at that point, but that should be fairly easy to achieve through signage and so on. Condition 4 covers the requirement for the pedestrian crossing to be put in place, and conditions 6 to 9 cover the noise mitigation measures. Condition 10 covers any unsuspected contamination that might be encountered, and condition 11 requires details of landscaping and their implementation, and condition 12 requires an energy statement to be submitted. So overall, taking account of the matters considered in the report, in particular in the accordance with the development plan, but also the consultation responses and the representations received, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Can I just clarify, is the application site within the 30 mile per hour, wholly within the 30 mile per hour zone?
Yes,
Yeah. So the addition of a crossing point may have a long-term added benefit of, once drivers become aware that it's there, it's slowing traffic down on that.
There is that possibility, yeah. I mean, I think anybody that travels through Mauchline probably is aware that a lot of traffic tends to kind of keep up in speed when they're going out of the village. So what kind of helps to prevent that is where there is sort of more activity around. So you've got the shop and the petrol filling station and access is there, and the pedestrian crossing. Psychologically, that should have an effect on drivers to hopefully slow down. But it is within the 30 limit anyway, so there is that restriction there.
Thanks, Nick. Councillor Lennox.
Just to add to that, there has been a speed survey done, and the Transport Scotland intend to extend the 30 mile an hour limits beyond their current position to more closer to the top of the hill. So that's already underway.
Yeah. Members, it's open for questions or comments at this point. Councillor Cowan.
Just out of interest again, who's picking up the cost for the pedestrian crossing?
The applicant will be responsible for that.
Councillor Lennox.
Aye, thanks. Being a local resident, I'm quite familiar with the site and the fact that it's been derelict now for some time. Just bear with me, I've got a few notes here and I've got a couple of questions regarding the conditions. Condition 5 states that there will be no connection of the drainage system into the trunk road system. That would concern me, because if they're not going to put it in there, where are they going to take the drainage? There are currently issues with drainage in certain parts of the Turbolton Road, known locally as Skier Road. So I'd like to understand what they plan to do with the drainage for this site, first of all. Thanks.
Fortunately, I don't think I have that information. That was a condition that was recommended by Transport Scotland, so we did have to apply that. I don't know what that.
It's probably something that we can find out for you, Councillor Lennox. In terms of it's likely to probably go into Scottish Water. That's a standard condition from Transport Scotland. I've seen that quite often on that, but we'll get the information to you after the committee.
If I can continue, Chair, thanks. One of the other conditions relates to trying to minimise the noise, and the hours have been restricted during the week to daytime hours, and they're further reduced on a Sunday and public holidays as well. I would suggest that, given the proximity to the new development across the road, that those hours on a Sunday need to be further reduced. I think for a Sunday and public holidays, it needs to be a later start and an earlier finish. So reduce those hours during public holidays on a Sunday. I mean, I know that we've said, sorry, that there previously was a garage in that site, which is true. But at the time there was a garage in that site, there was also a garage across the road. So there was less, it was less an issue in terms of jet washes and noise and stuff like that. So I'd be happier to see a reduction in hours for the jet wash on Sundays and public holidays. Having said that, I think the majority of the people in the village will welcome a development on that site, because it's been a concern for a long time that it might start to get used for unauthorised activity, if you like. Thankfully, it's been kept pretty clear up until now. But I think most folk would welcome the fact that it's going to be another business in the village, and the site will be brought back into use. So thanks for that.
Councillor Lennox. Bring in Barry at this point.
So the condition regarding the jet wash hours, it currently restricts on Sundays and bank holidays, it's 8 AM to 7 PM. That was sort of negotiated with environmental health officers, I think, these hours, and probably I'm surmising this is based on the fact that there is a reasonable level of background noise from the road already, and that will be even on Sundays as well. Obviously, it is quite a busy road. There is obviously there will be a demand for a jet wash during Sundays, particularly, and bank holidays. Don't know what hours were you thinking would be?
Apologies. If it means having to decide on hours before we go to deliberation, I'd suggest a 9 o'clock start and a 5 o'clock finish on a Sunday. This is a proposal off the top of my head. Thanks.
I think it might be welcome to bring in environmental health at this point, Carol.
So I think if you want to restrict it more, it would be a matter for the planning service to decide. Our guidelines are from 7 to 11 at night. So I think we've already suggested a significant restriction. I agree with you that a Sunday is generally set aside as being a different day, but unfortunately the guidelines that we have don't give any differentiation to that. So any of the guidelines that we have on construction noise, etc., are gentlemen's agreements, for want of a better way of describing them. So I would just add that the jet wash is in a position on the site that probably won't present us with a degree of concern. The drop off of noise between the site and the houses, and obviously the background noise of the cars, would be anticipated that it wouldn't cause a great deal of issue. Usually, and this is obviously something that we can't account for just now, in my experience, the noise issues associated with jet washers are not the jet wash themselves, it's the taxi drivers that turn up with their radios going. So it's more of a person issue that would need to be managed by the garage rather than an operational issue. I don't know if that helps any on that matter.
Councillor Lennox.
It does help. I'm just trying to help address some of the concerns that the neighbours might have, and any reduction on a Sunday especially, I think, would be welcome by them and by others. Thank you.
So, just for clarification, Councillor Lennox, is it condition number 6, and you were proposing to alter the times? You need your microphone.
Sorry, apologies, Chair. I'm suggesting that in condition 6, we reduce the hours, the operational hours on a Sunday and Scottish bank holidays further. So my suggestion would be a 9 AM start and a 5 PM finish.
I think the 9 o'clock start is fairly reasonable, and in certain incidents you can adjust that condition. 5 o'clock is, quite early. I was wondering maybe if you would consider maybe a compromise of 6 o'clock on that on a Sunday.
I'm happy to compromise in 6. Right.
Through you, Chair, just so that we're clear, Councillor Lennox, are you moving that the application be approved subject to the amendments being made, particularly to the condition 6? So is that the motion that you're perhaps putting forward at this stage? It's just so that we've got or is it more just you're putting out there for further consideration and discussion, the issue of that condition, and is it solely related to condition 6 regarding the jet wash?
Through you, Chair, thanks. I hadn't intended moving any motion to approve, although I'm in favour. At this stage, I was just discussing the conditions, and happy to. If we have agreed that there's the opportunity to amend that condition, then I'm happy at that point, Chair. Thank you. And if need be, Chair, I'd be happy to move the motion to approve the application. Thanks.
Subject to your amendments to condition 6.
Subject to that amendment. Thanks. Yes.
Chair, I'll second that. Mauchline needs another garage.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kyle. So I'm going to bring in Councillor McGee.
Just had a question, Chair, regarding the signalised crossing. Does the signalised crossing, does the traffic lights work independently, or would they stay at green unless somebody pressed the button to cross the road?
That will be a matter of detail for Transport Scotland. We don't have that detail. All we've got is the layouts. I think the actual sort of operation of the lights will be for Transport Scotland to set out.
Couldn't come back in, Councillor.
So can we make any recommendations to Transport Scotland? Whether they listen or no is a different question, but I would just prefer that the lights change for red to green occasionally, without somebody wanting to cross the road, because that would certainly slow down the traffic, in my opinion.
I suppose that's an operational matter, something that we can take up with Transport Scotland. They will know better the best way the traffic lights can operate. I don't know whether that is possible. Sounds like a good suggestion to myself, but Transport Scotland may have sort of an issue. I don't know, Barry, any sort of experience on that about the traffic lights?
No, the pedestrian crossings aren't designed to operate in that manner, Councillor McGee, so that they will only operate when the push button is pressed by pedestrians waiting to cross the road. If you've got the traffic lights just turning red randomly as such for the purpose of slowing or stopping traffic, that could lead to further issues and further confusion, just in relation to driver behaviour. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks for that clarification, Barry.
Right, no, I'm happy with Barry's explanation. That's
Okay, Councillor Maben.
Thank you, Chair. I would welcome new development, new business, new jobs, charging points, a shop, crossing points. All sounds very good, and I would be voting in favour of this. I am very concerned about speed and traffic, and I wish we had more information from Amy or Transport Scotland. With local councillors, MPs, MSPs for years have been fighting to get the traffic slowed down on this road. Traffic heading south and coming up over that hill is not doing 30 miles an hour. They pass the what do you call the radar operated sign, Barry or no? It sees the cars coming and it knows the speed and it flashes up a warning to slow down, and every car coming over that hill passing that sign flashes that sign and tells them to slow down. They're all doing over 30. I've stood there and watched it. I wish we had more information for Transport Scotland and when they're going to make changes and when they're going to move the speed limits further north up over that hill, and road markings and signage, and slow that traffic down, because if the garage gets approved and built fairly soon and these measures are not in place, we could be looking at accidents there.
Yeah, I think the application's wholly within the 30 mile per hour zone, and I'd imagine it'll be some sort of enforcement. And I think we've heard today that there's moves afoot to try and move the.
And Transport Scotland's response was on the basis of the current situation. But, you know, I mean, yeah, that's basically as it is. I mean, obviously, if there are proposals to extend the 30 and do further measures, then that's, you know, additional enhancement. But understand what you're saying about that.
I'm happy with that, Chair. I've expressed my concerns. Hopefully actions are taken to slow traffic down before the garage actually gets built and opens. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any further questions? Councillor Lennox.
Just to maybe try and alleviate Councillor Maben's concerns, which he's rightly put forward. There have been concerns for some time now about the speed of traffic right through Mauchline, not just at that particular location. The survey that was done and the plans that are underway have been ongoing for some time, and I would imagine that, contrary to what's been said, that Transport Scotland would have taken into consideration the additional measures that they're planning to take through the village in conjunction with this application. So I would anticipate that those measures to extend the speed limits will be done in the very near future, because the surveys was done about 2 years ago, and they've come back to local councillors and other elected members to say that those measures will be implemented. It's a question of when and no if.
Thanks, Councillor Lennox. So we've got Councillor Lennox's proposal of approval, seconded by Councillor Kyle, subject to a change of conditions and condition number 6. Is there anybody else otherwise minded in that? No. I think it's unanimous agreement that approve, subject to the change of conditions at number 6. And that is from 9 AM to 6 PM, we agreed? Yep. Okay, thank you very much, members. Yeah, and clarification, that's just for the Sunday Scottish public holiday. Members, we're going to move on to item 5 on the agenda, and that's compliance monitoring update of major developments and environmental projects. I think it's back over to you, Barry.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just run through some of the issues that have been raised during the last reporting period. So this covers the last 6 months. So it was changed from quarterly reports to 6 monthly reports. That was agreed at, I think it was the August Planning Committee or the June Planning Committee. Open cast coal restoration sites, we're coming to a close in relation to those now. Only Greenburn infrastructure works, some of the infrastructure works there remain, and they're covered through Section 42 application that was approved in December. In the next committee, the next compliance report will cover the Chalmerston open cast coal mine, where works are started in January to carry out the rest of the restoration there. That's going on while the wind farm is being constructed. Major developments, so these are mainly housing developments. We have notes in it that a breach of condition notice was served on the developer at Laird's Gate at North Craig Farm in Kilmarnock in respect of non-compliance with conditions relating to the implementation of surface water drainage infrastructure. There was an issue with the surface water runoff into the adjacent properties there. So that seeks to address this. This was just, I think it was served on the 24th of December. So I don't have an update for you at this point in relation to that. There were matters raised also at Afton Breeze or Rig Road development in Cumnock. We had an issue where the developer had stored excess soils from the sites adjacent to it within Taylor Wimpey land. We went to serve a notice on Taylor Wimpey as a landowner, and Campbell Homes, who developed the site, then proceeded to remove the soils from the land, which is what we wanted, but has then moved them into other parts of the Rig Road site. And this is causing some issues and some complaints for us. So we're currently dealing with that and considering what action we can and should take. We have also had some complaints about landscaping there as well that we continue to deal with, and we are trying to get a full landscaping plan from the developer for that site. Going on to electricity generating stations, at last compliance report, it was noted that there were some issues with North Kyle, and these have now been resolved and it's largely returned to compliance. The Kilmarnock South battery energy storage system, there was a breach of a condition there in relation to the construction traffic management plan, where the vehicle numbers were much higher than what was approved. A formal breach of condition notice and temporary stop notice was served on the developer there in October 2024, and this has had the effect required, and the vehicle numbers have returned back to what they should be. And within the site itself, it remains largely compliant. At quarries, there's notes within the report at Garple Quarry. We are still awaiting the submission of a habitat monitoring, bird management and bird monitoring plan for Garple Quarry. We have a compliance visit coming up there in February where that will be once again discussed and pursued from the developer. Enabling works at Dearduff Quarry, which is between Dunlop and Neilson, commenced in November 2024. And paragraph 19 notes that shortly after the works were commenced, we received a complaint that a property, which is actually within East Renfrewshire boundary, because the quarry is right next to the East Renfrewshire boundary, had a loss of water supply to their property. So this has been put back to the developer, and where the cause of it was being they're trying to work out the cause of this loss of supply and whether it is to do with the quarry. In the meantime, we have required the developer just this week to supply the property with bottled water, which is in the mitigation plan for the site if that was to happen. So they will have a supply of bottled water in the immediate term, while the actual cause is being investigated and hopefully resolved. There was also a complaint relating to Tincornhill Quarry about 2 HGVs from the quarry deviating from the approved routing, but it was confirmed that the HGVs were supplying materials locally and had to deviate from the approved route for that reason. In fact, one of them wasn't even a quarry lorry. Landfill sites, it notes again the mothballing of Garlaff by Bar, and we have currently a Section 42 application, which was submitted actually in 2019, and the applicant is seeking or has amended that application so to allow for the restoration of that site at the moment using the current levels that are there. There is no, it's not being used currently as a landfill site, so there aren't any materials to fill it any further. That covers most things. I don't know whether there was an issue maybe at Bridgehouse Hill that might be best covered by Fiona.
Yep, thanks, Mary. The developer at Bridgehouse Hill, Connect Modular, has gone into liquidation. So there are some outstanding issues relative to the phase one housing that's on site that was delivered for the RSL Cunningham Housing Association. There are outstanding issues regards to the play area design and provision of equipment. There is a landscaping bund at the back, there is a footpath, and there are some levels issues as well that we have been looking into. We were in the process of making contact with Cunningham Housing, however, their agent coincidentally emailed me at the same time, and we've now got a meeting set up for a couple of weeks' time to go through all the issues in the office, and then we're going to go out on site and have a look and see, with a view to seeing what we can get Cunningham Housing Association to address to ensure that everything is thereafter in accordance with the approved plans.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Fiona. Members, I think we can remember a few meetings back that we agreed that these compliance monitoring would go on a 6-monthly basis. Now, there's a few compliance monitoring issues in there, especially around like Afton Braes, Rig Road, where our local elected members have raised numerous issues on that site, around about SUDS issues, boundary fences not in place, footpath issues, lighting. It could go on. I think 6 months for that development and compliance monitoring is too long. I'd like to move that to 2 months, if that's possible, so we can keep an eye on that. And again, I was going to raise the issue at Bridgehouse Hill Road, and the numerous issues. We know the traders the developer's no longer trading. I think it'd be a good idea if that was back to 2 monthly basis. And obviously, the local issues around the Kilmarnock battery energy storage system. I think local members are getting regular complaints at that development. I just wonder if we could add the 3 of them into a 2 monthly basis at this time, just so we can keep an eye on it.
Councillor Barton, are you suggesting that we come back with a report just on these 3 issues in 2 months' time? The other alternative would be to set out a briefing to members of the planning committee, but also local ward members as well on that. And then if there is issues with that, then it will be covered in the 6 monthly report. The next one will be due by I don't know if we'll catch it before the summer recess or straight after the summer recess, but maybe sort of setting out through a sort of briefing of that we keep you informed of that. I'm aware that officers are heavily involved in these 3 sites. We've even got our planning enforcement officer sitting in the back, so he is hearing this of sort of the concern by members and sort of being informed of the actions being taken.
Thanks, Pam. I just remember when we came to the agreement to change it to 6, if there was any kind of burning issues that members could request that. So I think just in those 3 specific ones at this time, and that could probably go in conjunction with members' briefings.
Happy for that to come back in 2 months' time, so that would make it sort of end of March sort of committee, just to keep members informed.
Members happy with that? Yeah. So Councillor Lennox, I'm going to bring in Councillor Maitland's been sitting waiting online, so I'm going to bring in Councillor Maitland, then Councillor Lennox. Was there anybody else wanting to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I would welcome especially the 3 you're talking about, in particular Bridgehouse Hill, which has been ongoing. and quite disappointing, especially in the finishing. So I would welcome very much that Bridgehouse Hill is brought back on a 2-monthly basis. Myself and Councillor Maben in the chambers and Councillor Todd, we have been working on this with residents, and it has been disappointing to say the least at times. So hopefully this is us on a new footing and things can move forward soon. But yes, I would like 2 months. I'm also delighted to hear that Fiona's having a meeting with them, and hopefully some good will come out of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maitland. Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. No, really just to second your proposal to bring these at a more regular basis. I think while I've got the mic, the battery energy storage facilities down there at the Kilmarnock substation are a particular problem for Ward 7. So I welcome more frequent updates than that. What I'd also like to just say at this stage, in relation to wind farm applications and battery energy storage applications, we mention during these sessions on a regular basis about the cumulative effect. A lot of these applications in the one place. I think we need to start to set up and take notice a bit more as a planning committee about the detrimental effect, the cumulative effect, a lot of these applications. I just want to go on the record as having said that, because the situation is only going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and deteriorate. Thanks, Chair.
That's Councillor Lennox. No, apologies for starting off that. If you get any questions in the rest of the reports. No, I think everybody's quite happy in that. Yep. Thanks, Barry. The members, going to the final item on the agenda, item 6. And that's the update report on progress of planning applications which have been recommended for approval, which are subject to the conclusion of an appropriate legal agreement and/or legacy planning applications in East Ayrshire. And Pamela, you're taking us through this.
Councillor Barton. So this is one of the, again, regular reports that come on a 6 monthly basis. Time period for this is July to December 2024. So the report covers applications which have amounted to grant, subject to the conclusion of an appropriate legal agreement, which has not been determined within 6 months after either it's been considered by Planning Committee or the delegated officer. And the second one is based on legacy applications which are undetermined after sort of 1 year since sort of validation, and it sort of links in nicely to the first item about sort of Glasgow Road and those older applications that maybe are sitting sort of undetermined, and certainly we're trying to work through them very quickly on that. So in terms of the sort of applications which have been delayed due to the legal agreement, there's often you know, reasons for that delay in terms of the legal process, which can be multi-layered in terms of difficulty in reaching agreement on complex obligations, in terms of maybe sort of land ownership documents on that. Also, when the legal agreement is signed, then sort of that triggers the payment, and often developers are not ready for that, believe it or not, given that sometimes the application has been with the planning authority for many months or even years, and that's often triggered around the open space, the education sort of requirement, or maybe a contribution to affordable housing. So table 1 in the report outlines the 7 planning applications which have been subject to sort of a legal agreement and have not been issued under over 6 months old. 6 of the 7 planning applications, as I said, are over 6 months old. However, they are not stalled, and they are sort of progressing in a positive manner. Hopefully, when we come back in 6 months' time, those hopefully applications have been, the legal agreement has been signed and they have been issued. The second one is based on the legacy applications. These are the applications which are undetermined and are more than 1 year old. So there's 22 in total. So in this reporting period, 4 of these legacy cases have been concluded. However, 8 have been added to the to the number. The reasons mainly are the detailed maybe discussions with key consultees. There may be an issue with flooding with SEPA or other issues, legal agreement discussions, or maybe the requirement for further information on it. So it's worth noting that at the end of the reporting period, a number of these legacy applications now have already been determined or withdrawn. So recommendation to members is to note the content of the report, but also the recommended actions for each application, which are subject to a legal agreement, and also the recommendations, the recommend actions for each legacy application. So happy to take any questions.
Members, over to yourselves for any questions on that report. No, the only one I was going to ask, Palmer, is Tincorn Hill Quarry. We know it's been coming to us for a wee while. Do we any closer for that application coming before committee?
Yeah, the application was subject to a screening direction request from third parties. So it went to Scottish ministers and it's with them at the moment. So basically, third parties were asking for it to be screened for EIA by Scottish ministers. Our position is that it doesn't need to be screened, and we've looked at this in a lot of detail, as Craig will vouch for, that it doesn't need to be screened for EIA because it doesn't fall within EIA development. So, but obviously the third parties disagree with this. So it's going to Scottish ministers. We expect to get something back from them. It's actually meant to be this month. Possibly today, but hopefully it will be soon enough to be able to get it to the February committee. But we'll just need to wait and see. And obviously, if the decision is that EIA is required, then it won't be February committee because we'll have to submit an EIA report.
Thanks, Barry. Members, any questions, or are you happy to note further recommendations? Yep. Well, that concludes today's business. Thanks very much for attending. Yep. We can just stop the recording now, I think.